If your garden gives you less every year and you keep buying more to make up the difference, there is a reason for it, and it is older than you think. Deep in the Amazon basin, there is soil that has stayed rich for over 2,000 years. The rainforest around it is some of the poorest soil on Earth, thin, sour, washed out by rain. But these dark patches, the local people call them Terra Preta, black earth, are still fertile today, centuries after the hands that made them were gone. For a long time, people said this soil feeds itself forever, that it regenerates on its own like a living thing. I have to be honest with you right at the start, because that part is a myth, and the truth is actually more useful. The soil does not regenerate itself, and no garden ever will. What it does is hold on for an astonishingly long time, and today I will show you exactly why and how to build the same thing in your own beds. Stay with me, because the single most important step is the one almost every beginner skips, and skipping it will starve your plants instead of feeding them. A lot of you have asked me to gather the full method in one place. I put the complete written protocol, the ratios, and the seasonal calendar into a reference guide called the Sovereign Garden Code. The link is in the description and pinned in the top comment, and it is $24 this week. But you do not need to buy anything to follow along, because the core of the method is right here in this video. So let us start with the mystery itself. When researchers first dug into Terra Preta, they expected ordinary dirt. Instead, they found soil packed with charcoal, broken pottery, fish bones, and the remains of centuries of daily life. The charcoal was the key, and here is the part that matters for your garden. Ordinary compost breaks down. That is its whole nature. It rots, it feeds the soil, and within a season or two, it is gone. Charcoal is different because when wood is burned slowly with very little air, it does not turn to ash. It turns into a stable form of carbon that resists rotting for hundreds, even thousands of years. Under a microscope, a single handful of that carbon holds more inner surface than a tennis court, riddled with tiny pores. Those pores are the secret, giving water somewhere to sit and giving billions of microbes somewhere to live. Think of ordinary soil as a bucket with holes in the bottom. You pour in nutrients, and rain washes most of them straight through before your roots ever catch them. Now think of charcoal as a sponge you drop into that bucket, so the water and the food have somewhere to cling instead of draining away. That is the real reason Terra Preta lasted. Not magic, just carbon that refuses to break down, holding everything else in place. But charcoal alone is not Terra Preta, and this is where most modern advice goes wrong. The people who made these soils did not just bury charcoal and walk away. The charcoal was the skeleton, and onto it they layered kitchen scraps and green waste that rotted into rich humus. They added bones and fish remains, which slowly released the minerals that build strong roots and fruit. They added living soil itself, full of the fungi and bacteria that do the real work underground. So when you build your own version, think in those same layers, the durable charcoal plus the food and the life around it. Terra Preta was never a single ingredient. It was a whole way of returning life to the ground over and over. Now let me walk you through how to build it step by step. The first thing you need is real charcoal, not the briquettes soaked in lighter fluid from the supermarket. You can buy pure hardwood lump charcoal, or you can make your own, and making your own is older than farming. The simplest way is the pit method. You dig a cone-shaped hole wider at the top than the bottom, and you light a small fire at the base with dry twigs. As the flames catch, you add larger and larger pieces of dry wood, layer by layer. The trick is to keep adding fuel on top before the layer underneath turns to white ash. The fresh layer starves the fire below of oxygen, so instead of burning to ash, the wood underneath chars. When the pit is full and the top layer glows, you drench the whole thing with water until it is cold to the touch. One warning before you try this: check whether there is a fire ban in your area, do it on a still day with no wind, and keep water beside you the entire time. This is a real fire, not a candle, so treat it with respect. Once your charcoal is cool, you break it into small pieces, roughly the size of a pea or smaller. You can put it in a sturdy bag and crush it with a block of wood or run it through an old cement mixer if you have one. Smaller pieces mean more of those tiny pores are exposed, and that is what you want. Now here is the step I promised you, the one almost everyone gets wrong. This is the difference between soil that thrives and soil that suddenly looks worse than when you started. You cannot put fresh charcoal straight into your garden. If you do, it will act like a dry sponge and pull nutrients out of your soil, robbing the exact plants you're trying to feed. Gardeners who skip this step come back a month later confused, wondering why everything turned pale and slow. Fresh charcoal has to be charged first, and charging simply means loading that sponge with life and nutrients before it ever touches your beds. The easiest way is to mix your crushed charcoal into an active compost pile. As the compost works, the charcoal soaks up nutrients, moisture, and the living microbes that make soil fertile. A good rough guide is 1 part charcoal to 2 or 3 parts compost by volume. Keep the pile damp, like a wrung out sponge, never soaking and never bone dry, because if it dries out, the microbes die. Turn it every week or two and let it sit for at least 2 to 4 weeks. If you do not run a hot compost pile, you can soak the crushed charcoal in compost tea or an aged manure solution instead. Let it sit for a few weeks, stirring now and then so it never dries out. You will know it is ready when it smells earthy and sweet, like a forest floor after rain, not sharp or sour. Only now, once it is charged, do you work it into the top few inches of your beds. And here is good news. You do not need much because, unlike compost, it does not wash away. Even a modest amount, worked in once, keeps doing its job season after season. This works in containers too, for anyone gardening on a balcony or patio. For a large pot, the same rule holds: charge your charcoal first, then blend a modest amount into good potting soil and compost. The pores will hold moisture between waterings, which is a real gift for pots that dry out fast in summer heat. This is where the honesty from the beginning of the video matters again. You still feed the soil, still add compost, still mulch, because no soil truly feeds itself. What the charcoal does is make everything else you add work harder and last longer. It is the difference between filling a leaking bucket over and over and finally patching the holes. Let me save you from the mistakes I see over and over. The first you already know, using raw uncharged charcoal, and now you will never make it. The second is using the wrong charcoal, never briquettes with additives or lighter fluid, only pure wood. The third is leaving the pieces too large, so crush them down and expose those pores. The fourth is expecting results overnight, because this is a slow amendment whose strength shows over seasons, not days. The fifth is stopping there, adding charcoal once and assuming the soil will now take care of itself. Remember the honest truth. You're not building a soil that feeds itself. You are building one that wastes far less of what you give it. The old civilizations of the Amazon did not have a magic recipe. They had a habit. Generation after generation, they returned charcoal and kitchen waste and bones to the same ground, patiently, for centuries. Studies from research institutions around the world suggest that soil treated this way holds water better, holds nutrients better, and supports more life than untreated soil nearby. Results always vary with your climate, your rainfall, and your own soil, and anyone who promises you an exact number is selling you something. But the mechanism is real, it is ancient, and it is yours to use. If you want the full written protocol, the exact ratios, a printable seasonal calendar, and the sourcing notes, all of that is inside the Sovereign Garden Code, linked in the description and the pinned comment. There are 3 specific things I could not fit into a video this length, and I have gathered them there for you. The exact seasonal charging calendar for your climate zone, the precise charcoal to compost ratios for each type of crop, and the complete material sourcing checklist with quality specifications. I name all 3 clearly in the pinned comment so you know exactly what they are. But everything you need to start today, the burn, the crush, the charge, the mix, you already have from this video alone. So this week, before the season slips away, go find some real hardwood charcoal or make a small batch yourself. Crush it, charge it in your compost, and give it a month. Then work it into one bed and watch what happens over the season. Start small, start honest, and let the ground teach you the rest. If this way of thinking about soil made sense to you, the kind that respects both the old knowledge and the real science, then this channel is where you belong. So consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.